Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, today in this segment, I'm at the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association, Sioux City, Iowa. The Siouxland Historical Railroad Association is located on Sioux River Road in Sioux City, Iowa, near the Iowa-South Dakota border. Located next to the Big Sioux River, the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association is where the Milwaukee shops are located, and the roundhouse is where steam engines would be in the yard, housed up, and also the turntable also still remains in Sioux City as well. Siouxland Historical Railroad Association is where you can see exhibits, model trains, model trains, ride the speeder train, the 16-inch gauge train as well. The Milwaukee Railroad Shop was bankrupt till 1990 when the place was patched up, restored to former glory, and then this site became a museum. See behind me is the engineer's tool shed. This tool shed is the first building by the entrance of the museum. This building housed the oil cans, wrenches, rags, shovels, and other items that were used by the train crews on their run. This shed is strategically located next to the locomotive ready track. If the crews would get dispatched, they would walk over here from the roundhouse. After getting their orders, they get their tools and equipment and hop on the locomotive and go. The turntable was made by American Bridge Company in 1917. The turntable is 90 feet long, and its purpose was to put locomotives in the desired stalls for the maintenance and position them in the proper direction on the ready track for picking up their assigned trains after maintenance and servicing. Construction of the turntable is primarily wood with a metal underframe. Operations of the turntable was electric or manual. The tall mast is in the center of the turntable, which provides a key link in the electrical operation of this item. In the top center of the bridge is an item called an electrical slip joint and is installed in the red box. You can see it. It has a cable and electrical wires running it to keep the cables, keep the top of the slip joint in a stationary position. Inside there are electrical brushes that pass the electricity to the cylinder drum into another set of wires and down to the motor and control stand to operate the turntable. Without that device, operation would not be very difficult. With anything mechanical, things break. How do you move the locomotive if it blew a fuse or lost electrical power? You push it. On each end of the turntable, you'll even notice a large upside-down U-shaped metal enclosure. They were anchor points to put in a 10 to 14 foot long piece of 6x6 lumber that would be used to push holes in to help spin the turntable manually. An interesting thing, the turntable is one of the balanced designs. It will flop down and on one side or the other to allow the tracks ahead to even ease up, and loading equipment on or off. The equipment move across the center of the turntable, the turntable bounces itself, and the track ahead rises a couple inches. The turntable is balanced. It is surprisingly easy to turn a heavy locomotive, and also this turntable still works like it did when it was used to turn the steam locomotives on.
It's got the exhibits in the roundhouse, the small exhibit and artifacts. So let me show you some. You can see this coaster right here is a New York Central coaster. Look at all those New York Central steamers. And here's a roundhouse, that's a cutout. Boiler washed every 30 days. Springs lift engine parts. And foreman's office, machine shops for repairs, electric turntable. And that's a New York Central Belly Hudson. And you don't see any of those originals today. They've all been destroyed for no reason. And none of them survived the torch. Also, this is a railroad crossing signal, as you can see. This is even, for now, unplugged. And also you can see this is where you can find on websites, on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter of the museum. And also, these lights definitely work. Sometimes they take this out for display. Also, here's some artifacts in this case. There's an oiling can right here, used for greasing the rods and wheels in case they squeak. Here's a picture from the 1920s, a newspaper from the 1925. Also, here are some pictures from 1932. And yeah, this is all interesting stuff right here. That's a tool, that's a one block between the handle. Franklin Roosevelt, who's elected president in 1932. In 1934, Hindenburg died. Hitler proved himself president. And I wonder what that tool is. An old-fashioned tool. Wow. Okay, here's the next angle. Here's a picture of the roundhouse, I think that is. The roundhouse we're currently in. Here's a gauge. Here's an old-fashioned railroad lantern. Here's a picture of the complex from 1954. Here's some more exhibits right here. This picture here shows how the roundhouse became like that. There's some streamline details on the picture. This picture is from 1957. A small monkey wrench. There's a rubber handle lantern. Pen pad. And here's a picture from 1969. And a switch lock. And a lot of interesting stuff on this angle. Here's a picture from 1981 when the roundhouse was like that. And here's a Milwaukee Road hard hat. Here's a picture of the complex from 1995 as it was being under construction. Wow. A lot of interesting things from the past. Can't resist. Okay, here's a work safety wipeout action sign. This is a rag. And here's when the roundhouse was abandoned, bankrupt, and the turntable like that till what it is now. This is an electric brush tool, and here's a modern Union Pacific lantern, a wrench, and pictures from events. And here's a picture from 2013. A lot of interesting things here. Okay, this here is a chassis of a steam locomotive, a 440 American type, and also, you can see here what it looks like without the boiler and frame and everything. So here are the lead truck, the drive wheel, the pistons, and everything detailed. And this runs on miniature track. I like how they have it like this. Okay, so you see here, this is an old-fashioned tool chest. This tool chest was used by Lester GC from 1920 through 1940 on the Chicago, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Omaha Railroad, known as the Omaha Road, on the 19th, Floyd, and also on the Sioux City Terminal Railroad during the 1950s. And the tools were donated by Darrell C. and family. And here's the old-fashioned tool, two-cylinder, single-acting steam engine. And here's big oiling hat. I wonder what this is. And this is part of Siouxland Historical Railroad Association. And that box may have tools inside. Okay, so you see this picture right here. It says, how big is Iron Horse? Iron Horse is as big as Gordon. Gordon, the big engine from Thomas the Tank Engine, number 4. You can see this is 1355 right here, and Gordon, the big engine from Thomas the Tank Engine right below, and 1355, which is the steam engine here. Pretty amazing how this is shown. The locomotive you see behind me is Great Northern 1355. Great Northern 1355 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1909 as an E14 460 10-wheeler type. Then in 1924, 1355 was rebuilt as an H5 and was added with a trailing truck, and was rebuilt being a 462 Pacific type. Also, 1355 is the only surviving Great Northern 462 Pacific type, and was cut up for scrap. But then 1355 was saved from the torch, which was great and put on display at the Sioux City Event Center. Then went to the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association for display, where she is now. 1355 was given the number 10 of 20 in 1909, and numbered of the series of Great Northern E14s were numbered from 1008 to 1032, and 120 was sent to work in the Hilliard, Washington region, and located between Spokane, Washington, and Idaho in 1909. Then, in 1919, 1020 was sent to the Spokane Division for passenger service, rebuilt, renumbered, and loco class was renamed H5 in 1924. And the loco was rebuilt to being a 462 Pacific as part of the upgrade. It would receive 23.5 by 30 cylinders, a Belpaire point boiler rated at 1020 psi, and type A header superheater tube, a larger firebox, larger boiler, Delta trailing truck pilot, wheels replaced with solid wheel race modifications, new paint, and converted from burning oil to burning coal. Then the change from coal to fuel oil fire happened 4 times in its career, ending with fuel oil, then rolled out of the plant and was and 96 total. 1494 was also assigned to the Wilmer Division in St. Cloud, Minnesota in 1925. 1494 was put in Dale Street Shops once again and received a booster. The Delta truck had been removed in May through June 1929. Then 1494 got renumbered to 1355, which it is currently, and converted to burn oil, and the number series ran from 1350 to 1374. 1494 was the last H5 to be renumbered from the 1400 series into the 1350 to 1374 series. After the final renumbering, it was sent to the Sioux Division in Sioux, Montana. In 1355 was assigned to handle the Oriental Limited for about 5 years, and during her career, this locomotive pulled the named passenger train of the Empire Builder, the Winnipeg Limited, from 1944 to 1949. The Oriental Limited, the number 223 local from Williston, North Dakota to Aubrey, Montana, and the Snowden to Bainville, Montana, and was believed that it handled the Cascadian and Gopher during her passenger days as an H5 class locomotive. 1355 was rated to run its speeds up to 85 miles per hour. 1355 ran into passenger service till about 1950. 1355 was used in the Savvy Armament Ore Range in Minnesota for hauling ore in 1953. With the closing of the steamer age, 1355 was retired in 1955 after 46 years, then awaited the scrapper's torch. It didn't meet the torch. In 1955, 1355 was cleaned and brought from the Kelly Park, Minnesota area to the southernmost part of the Great Northern Rail line in Sioux City, Iowa. On July 14, 1955, with much pomp and circumstance during a ceremony which included the railway officials, business leaders, and city circumstances during a ceremony which included railway officials. Great Northern 1355 was put on display near downtown auditorium for all to see and enjoy. Then in 1984, a group of city business leaders, retired railroad men, and interested volunteers from a group called Siouxland Historical Railroad Association tried to put her back in operation one more time. The project sphere was headed by the founder Larry Ottmeyer, senior of Sioux City, Iowa, and former conductor of Chicago Northwestern. Many volunteers moved 1355 and tender 1451 to the old Illinois Central Shop site in mid-1984, where the restoration process and disassembling of the locomotive was started. And in 1955, with the grateful assistance of Illinois Central and Burlington Northern Railroad, the restoration operation was moved from across town to the former Milwaukee Railroad shops and roundhouse. The site was seriously deteriorated and was converted into a salvage yard after Milwaukee Railroad bankruptcy in 1980, and the complex had become overrun with weeds, trees, and abandoned vehicles and equipment. The volunteers now, besides working on the locomotive, commenced to cleaning up the site and restoring the red tapping building. Then in summer 2000, a federal transportation enhancement grant was awarded and a new roof was roundhouse over 1355, along with masonry truck pointing and a new window. The entire site was saved. So was Great Northern 1355 and Tender 1451. Also today, 1355 is safe from deteriorating and is on static display. You can also check out the cab of the loco and even sit where the engineer and fireman sit and even ring the bell, locomotive bell. Also, some events, 1355 is even seen on the turntable for display. Northern Pacific 1318 was built by Northern Pacific Railway, possibly at the South Tomoka shop in Tomoka, Washington, in 1913, and is a wood cupola style 24-foot caboose. This caboose was originally numbered 1877 when it first came out of this shop. You can also get a real feel for what early train travel must have been like, and as many internal parts are missing. Inside the caboose, you can find the toilet, ice box, and storage cupboard. The area where the conductor's desk, pot belly, stove, and crew beds were can clearly be seen. Also, this caboose was a different color and different look before, so the way you saw how it looks currently, but it was painted this color when it rolled out the factory in 1913. Then in 2013, this caboose turned 100 and got repainted into its original color and look, and it's still part of the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association. See, right behind me is Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 206. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 206 was built by General Electric in 1943 and is a 45-ton center cab switcher diesel locomotive. 206 has two 150 horsepower Cummins diesel engines, one air compressor on each engine with the train air brake system. 206 was Marine Corps 206 formerly and stationed at Marine Corps Logic Base in Barstow, California. The locomotive was donated to the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association in 1990. This engine was primarily used as a switcher, so the engineer and fireman seats in the cab are located on 2-foot high platforms to afford better viewing during switching operations. Also, when 206 came to the museum, it was painted light yellow and numbered 1 as SHRA, Siouxland Historical Railroad Association, then was repainted to a Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul scheme. This loco was equipped with side rods and counterweights to connect the two axles in each truck, as each truck only has one traction motor. This helps increase the traction of the wheels by distributing it among both axles, not just the one powered axle. Later models incorporated chains inside the truck that served the same purpose. This locomotive has a high weight to power ratio and has excellent traction. It also rated to be able to pull 20 loaded freight cars and on track level, and can pull Great Northern 1355 onto the turntable and push Great 1355 into the shed. Because it was designed as a switcher, it is not a fast engine. Nearly all variants of this style were limited to 20 miles per hour speed limit due to the double reduction gearing of the traction motors.
What you see behind me is Chicago Northwestern 162-571. Chicago Northwestern 162-571 was built in 1973 and manufactured by Pullman Standard Company of Bessemer, Pennsylvania, and was part of lot number 9665 and is a hydrome frame, 40 psi, 50-foot boxcar. This boxcar has been used on freight trains hauling boxes and other materials that is freight. Also came to be part of the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association. Also, you can check out the interior of the boxcar. You can see what's inside the boxcar, like a shelf, hoses, hay bales, a small caboose inside, and this old train schedule board, whatever you see inside. What you see behind me is Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 121. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 121 was built in 1947 by the Milwaukee Road and the Menominee Valley Shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a 48-seat dining car with a full kitchen. This coach is 5 feet long. Designed by industrial designed and built to complete with passenger traffic from Chicago, Seattle, Tacoma, against the Great Northern Railroad's Empire Builder and the Northern Pacific Railroad, North Coast Limited passenger train. The Milwaukee Railroad built as the Olympian term Streamliner, boasting a 43-hour and 30-minute scheduled travel time. Also, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 121 was transferred for use on the Milwaukee Road named passenger trains. The Twin Cities Hiawatha, which traveled from Chicago to Minneapolis. The Arrow, which traveled from Chicago to Sioux Falls, South Dakota through Sioux City, Iowa. And the Northwoods Hiawatha, which ran from Chicago to Minocqua, Wisconsin. After being repainted in 1956, this Steiner car found itself in joint service on the Union Pacific named trains of City of Los Angeles, which traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles, the City of San Francisco, which traveled from Chicago to San Francisco, and the City of Everywhere, which was in 1970. Union Pacific combined the following named trains into the one giant train in an effort to save money as passenger travel trains, ridership, dwindled Challenger, City of Denver, Los Angeles, City of Portland, City of San Francisco. The train was dubbed by critics as the City of Everywhere, although its official name remained the Challenger Midwest Hiawatha. The interior has been completely restored to its original look when it was placed into service in 1947 using the original paint samples and wallpaper from Milwaukee Museum, Milwaukee Railroad Archives, and Artisan. Also, this coat was painted in Union Pacific yellow because it was used in Union Pacific name trains like I've mentioned. What you see right behind me is Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul 1313. Chicago, Milwaukee, and the St. Paul 1313 was built in 1947 by the Milwaukee Road at Menominee Valley Shops in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and is a 85-foot long car with a 36-foot gauge baggage car and mail sorting compartment at one end for 4 crew sleeping compartments and hygiene area at the other end. This car was used by the porters, cooks, and other crew members on the long-distance passenger trains. One crew compartment, room A, is the steward's room and has 2 bunks to sleep. The other 3 rooms, B, C, and D, have 6 bunks. 6 bunks to sleep. Each bed is about 30 inches wide by 78 inches long. The beds in the steward's room have about 3.5 feet of vertical space. The beds in the crew's rooms have only about 2.5 feet of vertical space, with the bottom bunk starting out less than 1 foot off the floor. Each room also has reactable sink against a wall to provide for basic cleanup or shaving, and 2.5 foot wide walkway located at the crew compartment. Each end of the car are 2 toilets, a drinking water tank, storage closet, air conditioner equipment room, a washroom with 2 wall-mounted sinks, and a mirror and 1-person shower. The conductor's room is also in that area and provides a very small office for the conductor to maintain his paperwork. Each of the bunk rooms also have very tiny closets that is about 10 inches wide and 2 feet deep, and 1 in each the steward's room and 2 in each of the other rooms. At the baggage end of the car there is a mail sorting desk at one end of the compartment. At the other end of the compartment is a toilet, 2 storage cabinets, and an electric control panel. This car was intact and was never modified by the railroad. This car was designed by industrial designer Brooks Stevens. The Olympia in Hiawatha was designed by and built to complete with passenger traffic from Chicago to Seattle to Tacoma against the Great Northern Railroad Empire Builder and Northern Pacific Railroad's North Coast Limited Passenger Trains. The Milwaukee Railroad built the Olympia in Hiawatha as their flagship of the Hiawatha fleet, called it Speedliner, not the commonly used term Streamliner, boasting a 43-hour and 30-minute scheduled time travel. After this car was repainted in 1956, it found itself in joint service on the Union Pacific name trains, the city of Denver, which traveled from Chicago to Denver. Also, this car was yellow when it became part of the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association, then painted black back to Chicago, Milwaukee.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about
about trains with me today in Matthew Lap Train Guy segment show. And I hope to see you all again in the next segment. And this is Matthew Lap, host of Matthew Lap Train Guy segment show, signing out. Until next time, all aboard!